Welcome to another live episode of the Eric Crocker Show. And it's Wednesday, so we got Coach Desi coming on to talk some injuries, concerns with Brandon Aiyuk. We're going to talk about Christian McCaffrey, his usage, Travis Hunter. I know he's on Colorado, but he's dealing with an injury as well. We're going to get into all that and more, everything pertaining to your San Francisco 49ers. Fun times, Niners 2-0. So I think all the vibes are real positive right now. And we're going to try to keep it positive and keep, hopefully, we can find a way to be optimistic through some of these banged up players. So appreciate everybody that's joining right now. Appreciate everybody that called me out for being a little late. My apologies. As Coach Desi can attest when she comes on here, a hectic start to my morning, but we're here. I say hectic, and then my dog's in the background barking at who knows what. Okay. Appreciate everybody that's here. Make sure that y'all
Like and subscribe this
Yeah. I did want to start off by saying, of course, this show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. And hey, I don't, you know what? I'm gonna pull it up for y'all right now. Okay. So y'all gonna feel me. Y'all gonna feel me on this. Hold on. Underdog Fantasy. What they've been talking about? Hold on. And I've been telling y'all to play Underdog Fantasy. And I don't know. I don't know about y'all, but that looked like 5 picks for $1,000. Eric Crocker hit. So look, that $1,000 hit, it had been eluding me a little bit, man. It was trying, it was fighting. I mean, I missed by half a yard on one ticket. I missed by 1 yard on another ticket. And a matter of fact, that ticket, the guy actually picked up the yardage, but then ran backwards for no explainable reason. I have no idea what the hell he was doing. But at the end of the day, I hit on about $200 over the weekend. The big one eluded me, and then I hit for the $1,000 on Monday night. We're gonna keep it going. All right. So the way that you can find out all my picks and everything that I'm doing, how am I coming up on this money, whether it's big money or small money, subscribe to me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, we're gonna get it cracking on there. All right. So Underdog Fantasy, use promo code Crocky. They will double your deposit up to $100. Had to scream at the dog real quick. All right. But here we go. I did want to show y'all one thing. All right. There's actually this clip. And I know we talked a lot about the defense. Okay, so let's get into talking about this defense a little bit. Romeo, be quiet before I lock you up. This whole time I was muted. My bad, y'all. My bad. Coach Desi called me. That's the only reason why I knew I was muted. I must have muted myself when the dog was barking. All right, but my apologies. All right, let's go back to this. Hold on. Now I was showing you guys all the visual. Now you guys can hear it. All right, I'll start back over. We got too high here. I'm assuming that this is quarters coverage. All right, I'm assuming this is quarters coverage. I hate to assume because I don't 100% know. All right, I'm not in our meetings room, but it looks like some sort of quarters coverage. All right, now what has he done? Has he ran any vertical pushing routes to this point? I was watching the film. I didn't see anything that was vertically pushing, but could be wrong. Now, the one thing that we didn't really acknowledge a whole lot of was Deommodore Lenoir started in the slot. All right, so he started as a nickel DB. The game plan wasn't for him to be on the outside. So he might just be playing everything super honest and didn't really study Puka as an outside receiver. Okay. But everything that we saw was more, 5 to 10 yards intermediate. A lot of what we do as cornerbacks, especially on the outside, is we are reading 2 to 1, especially kind of in the quarters. Like he's kind of my threat to my quarters. All right. And that's what we're looking for. Like who's going to threaten my zone. When you have one guy pushing vertically, if he does anything here or here, he's going to take this. So these guys stack like that, especially with this concept. I'm not expecting him to really go run vertical with a flat if I haven't seen that. So watching Deommodore Lenoir here, it looked like to me he wasn't playing with any type of like anticipation, which again, it's not a position that he studied heading into the game, right? Like he wasn't looking at Puka on the outside because he started the game off in the slot. So ideally what you would like here is as Puka is pushing vertically here, start to throttle down in your pedal and anticipate a stop route because he hasn't shown us anything other than that. So then now when he stops here at the top of the route, you're more here and you can challenge the throw as opposed to here and it's essentially pitch and catch. So when people say like, oh, the 49ers are playing soft, which I saw some really good things from Lenoir. I want to make sure I say that. There was one play where the Rams actually caught the ball, but the way he peeled off of the vertically pushing route and then drove an out-breaking route underneath and challenged the catch, it was beautiful. And I think it was the receiver number 5. Can't think of his name right now. Tutu Atwell. All right. But here, and this is just me just kind of showing some of the things, all right, what I would be thinking. He hasn't challenged us vertically on the go route. So I'm going to sit on this route until he shows me otherwise. All right. So just kind of wanted to go over that. My apologies for being on mute for probably like 3 minutes. All right. My apologies. But we're going to jump out of that. Told y'all it's been a hectic morning. All right. We're going to jump out of that and we're going to bring on Coach Desi. Coach Desi, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I think you're doing a lot better than I am this morning right now.
I was praying that you would get the call. I was like, hopefully he's going to see the call.
I know, and I see right here. He said, we can't hear anything, Croc. Hey, my bad, man. My bad. I muted this because the dog was barking, and then he came down the stairs barking. I'm like, dude, shut up.
Romeo's into the podcast. He wants to be on.
Romeo's tripping. Now he's like taking a nap right here by my feet, so he's good now. All right, Coach Desi, it's good to see you. And first, I know we have some pictures of one Brandon Aiyuk and what he might be dealing with. So, Aiyuk, obviously he started this game, I want to say on like maybe the first catch. You see him like stay down for a while. Eventually he gets up. I think he came out the game. He ended up coming back in. He got a catch and he stayed down for a while again. I'm like, damn, I think Aiyuk is like really hurt, especially the second time. Like when a guy goes down the first time and there's some type of injury, you are assuming like, okay, he came back, he's good. But once he goes down the second time, it's like, okay, whatever it was that first time, like he's seriously kind of hurt, especially with it being like so close in plays. But he ended up finishing out the game. He was a limited participant in practice yesterday, so that's encouraging. But what can you tell us about this injury from Brandon Aiyuk? And I'm going to bring up the pictures as well.
Yeah, bring up the picture of him actually coming down. It's interesting. There's not been a definitive statement about what in particular is going on with him. So I can only kind of try to piece things together. This was the fall. It's his left shoulder. So he's falling kind of out, arms kind of were up, I believe. And so that can put stress on the AC joint. You can think about stingers, the clavicle. Then I think later they were talking about the neck. So there's lots of things going on. I don't think there's anything definitive that's been stated. But interestingly, they did a CAT scan. Now, a CAT scan instead of an MRI leads me to believe that they thought maybe something was fractured because CAT scans are more specific for bone injury. So the fact that the CT scan came back clean leads me to believe that maybe we're just dealing with a bruise. Again, this is all, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not quite sure for sure what's going on, but I'm just kind of collecting data and trying to infer, maybe read between the lines and figure it out. If you bring up the shoulder picture, I'll kind of explain some of the possibilities.
This one?
Nope, that's the knee. We'll do the next one. Yep, right there. So this is the anatomy of the shoulder there. And you can see the clavicle is the bone that kind of connects from the sternum, the bone, the chest plate bone, and it goes over to the shoulder joint. So that clavicle is probably what I'm guessing they were looking at as in doing the CAT scan. You can also, that clavicle comes out and it hits what's called the acromioclavicular joint, is the AC joint, acromioclavicular. So it connects in with the shoulder there. There's a band of fibrous tissues that connect those two bones. Sometimes you can get a little strain in there. Maybe he's got a little bit of a strain, but you don't worry about those unless there's a fracture or a big bump or it can completely tear and separate. But I don't think he's dealing with any of those issues. The other thing that was thought about, I think I saw a physician document something about a stinger being a possibility. So underneath the clavicle is a bundle of nerves called brachial plexus. And those bundle of nerves can get stretched and it can cause like an electric shock down the arm and some numbness and tingling. So that was the other differential that we were thinking about. So there's a couple of different things that may be going on with Aiyuk, maybe a little bit of this and that. It's maybe not just a one thing that we're looking at. It might be, maybe he's got a little bit of a sprain of the AC joint. Maybe he's got a little bruise to the clavicle. Maybe he did stretch some of those nerves, but ultimately this is not something that's going to long-term impair him. I actually expect him to play on Thursday, whether it's limited or not. I think that would be my thoughts based on everything that I've been seeing so far.
Well, hopefully he's out there. Obviously you want these guys to be full go, and we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey and trying to keep him full go. I did want to kind of turn the page a little bit and ask you about Travis Hunter. There was a very, and then we'll get to the knee as well with Chubb. But with Travis Hunter, he took a big shot on the sideline. And it's kind of been controversial. There are a lot of people that are like, this player should be kicked off the team. And it's like, dude, no. Was it a dirty play? Yes. It was dirty because it was drastically late. That's my thing. Like if in between the confines of the play, you hit somebody hard or even hit somebody low, like we'll see with Chubb, okay, whatever. But when the ball falls incomplete and it's so long after to where players kind of ease up and they're kind of relaxed and all of a sudden you take a shot on somebody, to me, that's a cheap shot. So I've never been one on cheap shots. Like if I'm going to hit you, I'm going to hit you within the whistles. Even if I cheap shot you by maybe blindsiding you, but within the whistles, whatever, keep your head on the swivel. But after the play, when the ball falls incomplete and everybody relaxes, then all of a sudden you just tee off on a guy. Dude, we don't do that. But should the guy be suspended for that or kicked off of a team? Hell nah, man. Dude, hey, Travis Hunter, you keep your head in the swivel too. Safety's coming over the top. So even if it's super late. So anyways, he got hit and something happened. Something was lacerated. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is not something that happens very frequently, but any kind of blunt trauma to the abdomen can result in internal organ damage. And that's pretty much what happened. He got blunt trauma to the right side of the abdomen. That's where your liver lives. And he basically caused a laceration, which is a cut in the liver, can cause a lot of bleeding. I don't know if you remember Chris Sims on the Bucks back in the day had something kind of similar. He took a hit, but it happened on the left side of the abdomen, which is where the spleen lives. And he ended up having a ruptured spleen, which is actually very dangerous and can be life-threatening. So he was immediately transported to the hospital where he had his spleen removed. depending on the degree of laceration to a liver, sometimes it's just being monitored. It's just doing serial scans and making sure that it's healing up and it's not becoming problematic. If it's severe enough, then it requires surgery, but it doesn't sound like it's on that severity, as he is already, I think he's home. I don't even think he's still in the hospital. I think he's doing okay, and I don't think there'll be any surgery, so that's great.
So how do you know when something like that happens? Like, is it the pain, or do you think like maybe he's like coughing up blood, or like what are the signs of that? Because he came back and played.
It's
Like he
pain.
played, and then eventually he went out and had to go to the hospital.
Yeah, it's pain, and when it gets to a certain severity, I don't know if you've ever had really bad abdominal pain. You're just kind of doubled over, like you literally can't even stand up straight. So, he may have had that game. There was so much energy, so much endorphins going on, and those things can kind of hide certain symptoms. And he may have just had that hyped up and adrenaline going, and he didn't even feel it at first. And then, as it continues, it'll set in, and you're going to get some pretty bad abdominal pain that you can't deny. So, yeah. Rough. It's been like some scary injuries have happened between college and the NFL in the last 2 weeks. It is, really wild. Not fun for anybody.
You said some scary injuries, and here is another one, and this was Nick Chubb. All right, so talk us through what maybe Nick Chubb is going through, because I mean it was brutal, and they did not even want to show us the replay.
Yeah, I didn't even TV. Yeah, I'm not putting it. I didn't send you the picture of it because it is.
I've seen it though. I've seen it floating around on social media. I mean, it looks as bad as they thought it would.
This is one of the worst injuries I've seen. I mean, Tua's up there. This is brutal. Basically, I can't remember if it was here, if it was on Twitter where I was in that group with you guys chatting, but they were talking about, I forget who we were talking about, the blown up knee, or the knee was going to blow up.
No, Juju Smith.
Juju Smith, yes. So this is literally a blown knee. This is what you consider a blown knee. And so he had blunt trauma that came to the outside part of the knee and caused it to bend in like medially. So it's a lateral force coming from the outside of the knee, and the knee bent from foot to hip, like from the side. I'm trying to explain this so that people listening and not watching can understand. But if you look here on the picture that Croc has up, it hit from this outside where the lower, you see this where it says lateral collateral ligament on the left-hand side of the picture. That's where the trauma came in. It hit this knee, and it probably, for sure, it blew out what's called the medial collateral ligament. So that's on this inside part of the knee. So you see where it says medial collateral ligament, that ligament is gone. Now, in the picture to the right, you see these crisscrossed ligaments structures. That's your ACL and your PCL. That's probably gone, at least one of them, if not both. Now, there's something in medicine that we call the unhappy triad, and that's where you tear your ACL, your MCL, and you have a meniscal tear. So that's for sure probably what he's got at minimum. But I think for those of you that are on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call that, I did point out that this could be an injury so severe it could cause problems with even salvaging the limb. So in also that inside part, the part where the trauma came in on the lateral side, that part where the hit was first initiated, there's a very important nerve that comes around what's called the head of the fibula. That's the outside bone of the lower leg. That nerve is the peroneal nerve. And if that gets stretched or cut, you lose the ability to lift your foot. You get what's called a drop foot. So there could be nerve damage. Behind the knee is the artery, a huge artery that sits back there. So again, a blunt trauma like that can cause shearing forces. So I'm glad that we talked about Travis Hunter first, because that's what happened, that shearing force. It's a blunt trauma to that liver called a shearing force and causes that laceration. So same thing here, a blunt trauma comes to the outside of the knee. It can cause injury to that nerve right there, but then behind the knee, that it could shear partially tear that artery. And if you lose an artery, that's the arteries and veins. The difference is arteries carry all the blood, all the oxygen, all the nutrients to your important structures. So if you lose that, it's rich, and that's the pumper. That's the one that you have to tie off, and you can't, you'll bleed out and you could potentially die. So this is like a trauma that was so severe that I actually had concerns about what we call neurovascular injury, nerve injury or vascular injury. I have not seen anything come out about what's going on, other than they said for sure he's out for the season. Now, this knee for him is the same knee that he air quote blew out before he ever came to the NFL. And I talked
Georgia.
about it. Yes, I talked about it when we were comparing, when the Christian McCaffrey trade happened. We were comparing him to other running backs that are in the NFL, and I compared him to Nick Chubb. He's doing great. He had a complete reconstruction of the knee. But interestingly, he tore his PCL, not his ACL, his PCL, his MCL, and his LCL. So this is just an interesting collection of ligaments that he tore, but multiple ligaments again, same knee. And sometimes when you have when you have a ligament repair, one of two things can happen. One, it could be not that strong and it's easy to re-tear, right? Or two, it's a really good repair. And so when you have another trauma like this, it can actually create more damage because it was actually put in really strong and tense. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this guy. I actually really immediately thought about Alex Smith and all the stuff that happened with his leg. This is a very serious injury. And if you guys are praying, folks, definitely send your prayers up, because this is going to be a long road for this gentleman.
Whew, it was tough. It was tough to watch. And then it's tough, when you're the player that hurt the guy, right? When you are Minkah Fitzpatrick, who later in the game, he ended up getting hurt and he left that game as well. But, there are a lot of people like, oh, man, like Minkah, that was a cheap shot. Like, look how he went to tackle him. And it's tough. As a defensive back, our thoughts aren't so much tackling a guy to protect him. They've taken away a lot of the rules for players in general, like on defense with, target areas where you can hit a guy. You can't hit them too high. You can't hit them if they are deemed to be not able to protect themselves, like, going over the middle where, guys like Jerry Rice, John Taylor, back in the day, they run slants and it's tee-off season. You go over the middle, what comes with it, you get banged and it's over. Well, now they'll call unnecessary roughness if a guy is running a slant and you hit him too hard, especially up high. So, when you do have a guy like Chubb, and I'll just kind of speak for Minkah Fitzpatrick, right? Chubb is one of the strongest players in the NFL. He's one of the strongest runners in the NFL. And I get what people are saying. There was a guy, that was already tackling him. You don't have to come in and hit him or hit him low. And at the end of the day, as a defensive back, now again, whether you want to say is dirty or not, whatever. But as a defensive back, my main job is to stop him. Like, I have to stop him and I have to get him down right now. So Minkah came in, and when guys are running straight on, it's hard to just say, okay, I'm just going to run straight into him, because then now I open myself up to injury. So what did Minkah do? He went low and he turned his body, and not, oh, I'm going to go low, turn my body, and I'm going to just wipe his entire knee out. Like, that's not what you're thinking. You're just thinking, I'm going to go low and turn my body and take his legs out to where now he can't keep running, but not take his legs out because I'm trying to blow a knee out. Take his legs out just to where it just stops him. Like, oh, okay, boom, I chopped his legs out from underneath him. He falls, he gets up, he plays another down. And I didn't hurt myself. And that's what I would be thinking as a defensive back. But I think a lot of people, especially these people that are doing these rules, which weird, because I think, I want to say Troy Vincent is one of them. It's like, bro, you were a defensive back. Like, you understand how hard it is to hit these guys that are either running full speed or they're coming at you, and you see this like strong ox of a man, and how you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this guy down?
Yeah.
So I didn't look at it as, oh, Minkah was trying to be dirty or anything like that. He's doing what most DBs do. Now, some guys will go up high, and they're just different mentally. Like those guys that just go high no matter what, they're different, right?
Yeah.
But for a majority of defensive backs, you just when you see a running back coming through the hole and it happens fast, I got to chop this guy down, or he might just run through me, or I might stop my feet, try to lead with my head. Then next thing you know, I'm concussed because this guy lowers his head into me. So you just go low and you throw your body into a guy and you hope that you bring him down, but you definitely don't want to try to cause injury, as opposed to the Colorado State play, which he was trying to, like, how do I say this?
Send a message.
He was trying to send a message.
Yeah.
I just think it was too late. Like there's this play, and I think somebody brought up the play, and I don't know how much of the Florida, they have a Florida Gator documentary. It's called On the Untold on Netflix. And one of the safeties early in the game against Oklahoma, he said, I could have went for the ball, but I didn't want to go for the ball. I wanted to send a message. So he smashed the guy.
Yeah.
Right as the ball got there, incomplete, there wasn't a flag thrown, but the message got sent. He hit the guy hard. I have no issues with it. When the ball is incomplete, a guy eases up, and then you tee off on him, that's a dirty play. That is a dirty play. Should the guy be kicked out of his team? Like, no. But it is a dirty play. And hopefully, his team handles it however they handle it. Make them run, roll, whatever. Like, that's not how we want to play. But I do understand the trying to send a message part.
Yeah. No, I think Chubb was it's an unfortunate situation. Like you said, running backs, they're tough. Even Debo, he's a wide back. He's got like 3 guys hanging off of him. So if you don't hit them and hit them right, they definitely have the ability to get back up and get another couple yards. So it's unfortunate, but that's the life of a running back, and that's the concern for our running back, right?
That is, and we're about to bring that up right now. Real quick, I got Gammon in the chat. He says, what kind of pain-numbing medication can be given to Brandon Aiyuk, or is he just getting ibuprofen and told to suck it up, Buttercup? When I was playing, and you might know more about what they're giving some of these guys because I just took whatever they told me I need to take. But there was a time where I was playing with like this shoulder injury that kept kind of like popping out the socket, and they put this sleeve on it to restrict some of my movement. And they would give me a shot in my butt cheek. So, Toradol?
Toradol. Yeah, that's a potent anti-inflammatory. Yeah.
Yeah. So they gave us they would give me Toradol, and there was a time where I was playing. I had a high ankle sprain. They did not tell me I had an ankle sprain. I don't think they knew I had a high ankle sprain. I think they just thought I had a regular ankle sprain, even though I knew. I'm like, there's something clearly different about this. Like, I had an ankle sprain earlier in the year. And not the crazy thing, I mean, having these injuries, especially to the lower body, like I never had those throughout my entire career playing football. But and I actually did not miss a game due to injury in my entire life until this high ankle sprain. But first, they just thought it was a regular ankle sprain. They taped it up heavily, put me at a different position where I move on mostly side to side, and whoop, gave me the shot in the butt cheek. And it was like, oh, I'm able to run. Like, let's go. So it kind of masked whatever pain signals your body is trying to send. So Toradol, it does a lot. All right. So I know they give that. Do you know if they give anything else?
I mean, I don't know what their protocols are. I mean, just from an outpatient, like if this were just a random person coming into our clinic, I'd probably say, ibuprofen, maybe Toradol. You can also do ibuprofen. So anytime you take an anti-inflammatory, you can also take ibuprofen because that's not in the same class as ibuprofen. So he could do Tylenol and ibuprofen. Plus or minus prednisone. You don't want to do prednisone with ibuprofen. I don't know. Are you guys allowed to take prednisone, or is that considered?
I'm not sure. I don't even know what that is.
That's a steroid. It's the most potent anti-inflammatory on the market. So singers who lose their voices, they'll get some injectable steroids to help decrease the inflammation. So they may do that with the Toradol. It just depends, but orally, they can only do ibuprofen and Tylenol. But they have got K-tape. They've got, extra protection they can put over them. It sounds like, again, with that CT scan, it sounds like it was more bone that they were worried about, looking for maybe a fracture there. So, maybe it's more like a bruise and maybe just extra padding that they can put there.
All right. And then here we go. We got Antonio Seabrook in the chat. He says, Croc, we agree on many things, but cheap shot is not one of them. It's basically a sucker punch. And who is prepared to protect themselves from that? It's completely out of line, in my opinion. There are sucker punches, and then there are like sucker punches, right? So I think in some situations, and there are some scenarios where, let's say you got sucker punched, where I feel like your antennas should be up a little bit. So, and I'm not saying that's the case with Travis Hunter, where he eases up, he thinks the play's over, and then boom, a guy tees off on him. But like, let's say Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. It's like if I'm talking trash back and forth to a guy, and I keep talking, then the guy walks up into my space. I like when Draymond hit him. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's a sucker punch." If you're barking back and forth to a guy, and the guy walks up into your space and hits you, that should be like that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like once a guy walks in here, it's like, all right, you either gonna get out of my face or we're gonna throw down. Like those are the two options. But I'm not gonna act like you're not prone to hit me when we've been going back and forth, especially in sports. Like it gets heated. I understand that, and sometimes it gets you cross the line. And when you hit a guy that hard, you cross the line within it being your teammate. But I'm not putting all the fault on Draymond Green. Like Jordan Poole, you got some fault in this. You got to know, like this guy, he's been barking, he's pacing back and forth. He walks into your space. You give him a little shove, like hands got to be ready to go. All right, so I ain't letting him slide, but I do understand with Travis Hunter, where I say, you kind of have to be aware, but it was very late. It was. I agree with you on that, Tone. All right, here we go. Gammon says Garrison Hurst came back. Chubb can as well. And Hurst, was it his ankle? Did he have like the Trey Lance? I don't know if you remember this. It was in like the Falcons game, NFC Championship game, 1997, 98, around there. He snapped his ankle.
Yeah.
And I think it was more like Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, as opposed to whatever the hell Chubb is going through.
Well, Garrison Hurst had what's called avascular necrosis, which is where a fracture happens, and it can happen either in a bone that has a limited blood supply, or something happens to impede the blood supply, and so the bone kind of dies. So avascular necrosis is that they lack the vascular ability to heal the bone properly. So he had kind of a complication from the fracture, if you will. So a little bit different because there's some things medically that can be done to kind of help with that. Chubb, on the other hand, since he's already blown out his knee once and had surgery to repair it, and now it's blown out again, I never like to say it, but it would take a miracle. I'll put it that way. It would take a miracle for him to come back. That I can't be any more pointed on how serious his injury is. There's a guy that I treated in the emergency room. He had signed in the NFL, young kid. He came back home. He was, hanging out with his crew, and they ended up doing some kind of nonsense he got caught up in and sustained an injury where he had a cut on the outside part of his knee. And right where I showed you guys where that nerve is, the peroneal nerve, he lacerated it and he sustained a foot drop. And I had to look this kid in the eye and tell him that was probably it, unless the neurosurgeon could, fix that. So telling someone that is it, that is the, there's not going to be, life is going to be different. It's really hard to do. And so I really try not to say that, especially in a public space, but I can just say that this is going to take a miracle and a lot of rehab, a lot of surgery. And again, I still don't know the extent if he did sustain any kind of neurovascular injury.
Gosh, that's tough. That's tough for my guy, Chubb. We do want to prevent injuries, so we kind of want to talk about Christian McCaffrey. And I have hated listen, okay. One thing we know about Kyle Shanahan, he has his scheme. He has his scheme with how he sees it being run, and he wants it run that way. And he wants the guys that are going to be able to run it that way, he wants those guys in, right? So you look at the quarterback position, Brock Purdy understands how to run Kyle Shanahan's system. He understands how to, he sees the field the way Kyle Shanahan sees it, and Kyle can relay information. They see the field the same, and Brock Purdy executes, and it's amazing. Everything's good. Deebo Samuel, he knows his role. Brandon Aiyuk knows his role. Juwan Jennings, I think why he loves him so much. He knows his role. Everyone knows their role, and they do it as their role at a higher level than Christian McCaffrey. And whether it's in the run game, whether it's in the passing game, and we can go back to like Kyle Shanahan's days with the Atlanta Falcons, and he used 2 running backs, Freeman and Tevin Coleman, right? And it's like, hey, this guy does this very well. This guy does this very well. They were a little different in their ability, but they came together and they made kind of this one super back, right? Like 2 guys combined. Well, Christian McCaffrey is those guys combined. He is one, like he is the super back. And I think for Kyle Shanahan, when he looks at the scheme, the game plan, and everything that he wants to do heading into the game, it's Christian can do everything. I don't need 2 backs when I have him and him doing it at a high level. And somewhere along the line, he kind of forgets that even though I understand CMC is everything that you want. Every time he carries the ball, he opens himself up to injury. It's the nature of the running back position. You just talked about it. The NFL has let us know how they feel about it. They don't want to pay backs. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, this might be the last year of Chubb's contract, and I don't think it was like much money. Like it was like a little bit of money, and all these guys, all these running backs this offseason, there was Chubb, I believe, Saquon Barkley, and Josh Jacobs. They were all trying to like get more money. And they really didn't, not in comparison to like other highly paid players at different positions, receivers, quarterbacks, edge rushers, cornerbacks, etc. Like all these guys are making more than running backs. And we're talking about guys that are playing running back at the highest level. Like Chubb has been, and we talk about Christian McCaffrey and what he is and what he means to the 49ers. I'd say if you just took a poll, I mean, Chubb is right there in the sense of like just every year best back or top 2, right? So, but Christian McCaffrey, he's like everything to the Niners. And Kyle says, well, he is everything and he does everything. So I'm just going to run him into the ground until I can't. Is that what we're doing, Kyle? So in the first game, Elijah Mitchell gets 5 carries, and I'm going to say for like 10 yards. So it's nothing great. But the way I look at it is in those 5 carries, you eliminate Christian McCaffrey getting hurt, or you eliminate Deebo Samuel getting hurt. And I'm not going to say that they're never going to get hurt, but in those 5 plays or so, it eliminates the option of them even potentially getting hurt on that play. So then you go and you play against the LA Rams. And there's not a lot of bad that you can say about Kyle Shanahan through 2 games. I think the offense has done very well. He's dialed up some really good stuff. Even in the game where Brock Purdy didn't have, quote-unquote, his fastball, you still put up 30 points, right? Like, Kyle is amazing. But the one knock I have right now, and I don't want to be a guy that complains about every little thing, but the fact that you go an entire game, and the only 2 guys that get carries out of the backfield are Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. When you have a guy like Elijah Mitchell, who is very capable, this is a guy that missed like 6 games his rookie year and still was a few yards short of 1,000 yards. Like, he can't run and he runs well. How are you not utilizing him? So when you're watching the game, and I know some people aren't thinking about this, but the longevity of Christian McCaffrey, because of the position he plays and because of the usage in Kyle Shanahan's system, is that something that potentially worries you?
Of course. And by the way, we're going to make super back a thing. I love it. We have the wide back and the super back. I love it. But yeah, of course, every time, he takes a snap, you're worried about something happening. He is nimble. He's very balanced. He's kind of Nick Bosa-ish, right? Like, if you look at Nick Bosa, he's a big guy, big muscles, but very flexible. And that really helps with mobility and movement, and almost like a cat, right? Like cats can like fall and somehow still land on their feet.
Yes.
I feel like that's kind of how he moves. He has this way, just like Brock has vision of the field. I feel like McCaffrey has this way of knowing what's happening around him, and it's sort of protective. In his career, I talked about this last year, he really hasn't sustained anything horrendous. So when the trade happened, I was actually very excited. I was nervous at first because, again, everybody's like, oh, he's been injured, he's been banged up. But when I looked at his actual history, other than 2020, which we have talked ad nauseum about how many injuries happened that year, there was no preseason, and his worst injury happened in that September, that first 4 weeks after the season started. It was a high ankle sprain. Other than that, it's been little nicks and little dents, little things here and there. But, I think it comes from whatever kind of training he's doing, plus his just natural anatomy and his situational awareness is somewhat protective. But that said, as you know, as a coach, I will want to make sure that my other backs are getting reps, right? Because even when somebody gets dinged up, it still then leads you to the opportunity to miss a game, miss 2 games. And if you're not giving reps to your number 2s or 3s, then you're going to be in a situation that maybe the offense is not feeling quite right because they're not used to having those players in there. So 2 things. One, on one end, it's protective for CMC, but on the other end, you know, you got to give your guys reps to get that experience going so you have solid backups. I don't know if it was just watching that game, I never felt like we were like comfortably ahead, that maybe he felt like, if I do this, maybe that's, you know, I don't know if there was some of that or if it was just pride of like, I'm going to stick it to McVay and we're going to, you know.
I don't even think he realized. I think Kyle, and this tough thing when you're the head coach and like it's your offense, it's your scheme, and you're the play caller. I think he was just like, I'm in the groove. Like, I'm in the groove. I'm in the flow. I got my guys. We're cooking. We're moving the ball. CMC's going crazy. We're utilizing Debo. We're doing all these things. And I don't think he just thought, I haven't gotten Elijah Mitchell in the game. Like, I think it just slipped his mind.
I think so. I think you nailed it because he is very cranial, right? And I think he may just get caught up in like the plays and calling. Like he's probably just in his mode and just very cranial and didn't think that. Like, he admitted it after the game, right? Like he knew, he acknowledged he has to, and maybe it was planned. I mean, maybe he planned it that way, knowing we were going to play the Giants on a Thursday. Maybe he's like, let's get him the reps this day. Maybe we put a different one in on Thursday. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out tomorrow.
I think Kyle, and we've heard a lot about this. Kyle thinks for today. Like, that's been his like biggest quote unquote issue, right? And I don't want to say it's like a huge issue, but obviously he's a terrific coach. But if there is a fault of his, he's so much in the moment as opposed to looking at anything like down the line, which is good because you know you want to be present, you want to be in the moment, you want to make sure you do everything you can in this moment to be the best version of you, or you know, for your team or whatever. So I think that's cool, but I don't think he was thinking about like, all right, I'm gonna run him today, and then Thursday we'll like share the load or whatever because we have a short week. I think it was just, this is what I need to do to win. And my only pushback, and he knows these guys a lot more than I do. He knows these players. I think Elijah Mitchell is a damn good running back. Now, his biggest issue is his inability to stay healthy, right? Like, that's been the issue with him. He somehow, some way, like for whatever reason, he's been banged up. But right now, he ain't banged up. He's got to be healthy because he's only had 5 carries, right? And if it's not just him, let's say not him. I mean, Jordan Mason, has he shown us like, you know what, this guy can't be a solid back, or he can't get a few carries a game. So when I look at Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason to pair with Christian McCaffrey, I look at probably the best, if not top 3 running back groups in the entire NFL. So I don't even look at it as, if CMC isn't in the game and Elijah Mitchell gets a carry, that there's this like, oh man, like this guy just, you know, it's not like you're taking Brock Purdy out and putting Brandon Allen in and saying, well, now all of a sudden, you know, oh man, I gotta worry now because Brandon, that, like, no, it's not a drop off like that. You know, it's, you go from CMC, he's doing good. Okay, let's get him Elijah Mitchell a few touches. CMC, get a little bit of rest. All right, you know, okay, now I think if I heard, and I don't know if it's correct, like CMC played 100% of the snaps, which if that's that's just wild to me, especially for a running back, especially for a position while everybody's talking about how they get hurt. And I feel like Kyle isn't doing anything to kind of like change that narrative. It's like, I'm just going to run you and I'm going to run you and I'm going to run you until I can't run you. And hopefully I can run you all year. But if not, well, then, okay, I got Elijah Mitchell. I'm just like, gosh, I don't know. It's just a little worrisome to me, but maybe I'm tripping.
No, I think I agree. I agree. I think there's a lot of fans that agree with you as well. We love the magic of CMC on the field. I mean, it is just amazing to watch this. It's like art. It's beautiful. And so we love that. But in the same breath, we're all like, oh, look what happened to Saquon. Oh, look what happened to Chubb. Oh, you know, and just given our history the past few years, I don't even want to say it, but there's a reason why you have me on here on Wednesdays. So.
Right. And you can't, you can't coach scared. Like I can't coach with the thoughts of, well, what if my player gets hurt doing this? Like the injuries, they just happen in the game. But when you have very capable guys, then just lessen the load a little bit on McCaffrey. And I'm not even saying, don't give him the rock, don't do this, but can he, instead of playing 100% of the snaps, can he play 85% of the snaps? And can you still get very good production out of him and the team? Like, I think so.
Just share the love. I'd like to see Juice get in on some action too. I haven't seen the Juice hasn't been, like that can hasn't been popped open yet. So we need to.
No, in the passing game or in the run game.
Yeah, I need to see Juice.
He was a guy a lot of times on Underdog Fantasy. When I see his stat line, his yards is usually around 7 yards. I always take it because at some point he catches the ball, but that hasn't been the case so far. And, different quarterback. One quarterback might see Juice as a valuable check down guy, where maybe Jimmy G did, as opposed to Brock, where Brock is like, my outlet is Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. And I would kind of look in to see how many catches Juice has gotten with Christian McCaffrey on the field at the same time. So maybe that's it. We have a question right here from Gammon. He says, what's it like playing on artificial turf? I'll answer that. Then the second part, and you can think about this. And we looked into this last season about artificial turf. Should it be removed? Is it a coincidence with the injuries that are happening on it? So I'll start with the first part. Again, I was someone who just did not get hurt. Like I played a lot of years of football. And when I say I didn't get hurt, like I got banged up. I talked about me having to play with a shoulder harness on because my shoulder was trying to pop out. I've had dislocated fingers, just kind of like little things like that. But as far as like outside of my very, very, very last year of playing, where I got the high ankle sprain, which we talk about dirty plays, I was to the backside of a play. They ran a screen to the left. I was to the backside, like away, and I don't even know what happened, but he was instructed to cut me. So if any of y'all know like what cutting is, it's somebody, they just run, dive into your lower body, and then essentially it kind of looks like the tackle from Minka. But when you're cut blocking, it's a little different because the defender isn't really like expecting it. Like it's like I'm going and I'm thinking like this guy's gonna like block me, so I kind of like go to get my hands on it, and then they just dive into your legs. So he cut me and rolled, and I thought I snapped my ankle. I thought I was gonna look down and my ankle was gonna look like Trey Lance's or Dak Prescott's. Like I thought it was like my ankle sideways because I've never felt a pain like this, but it was just a high ankle sprain. And that was my first time. I don't know if that happened more so due to the turf, because again, I played on turf a lot, played on grass a lot, and that was my first time having a lower body injury. But we did kind of look into this last year, so I don't know if you remember. Again, I'm putting Coach Desi on the spot. We looked up some of the statistics on injuries on turf as opposed to grass, but just your thoughts on that off the top of your head.
It's a complicated question to answer because there's different variables. So not all turf is the same. So if all turf was created equal, then you could take this study and compare it against grass, and you would have a great answer. But unfortunately, turf, manufacturers create different types of turf. So there's different viscosities, different thickness. Now there's even partial grass, partial turf. So they're still playing around with it. So it's really hard to identify if you would have to then say which turf is most comparable to grass. So there's just, it's very complex, and there's no just yes or no answer. However, I just talked about this on my podcast last weekend with my friend who is a physical therapist, and she was also doing some research. And interestingly, that a lot of the data that's been collected that is pro turf was paid for by the turf companies. So it's interesting. I didn't look at that, but yes, MetLife is terrible. We've lost we had a lot of injuries on MetLife. That's where Aaron Rodgers got injured. So I think the players would know best. And so I believe the Players Association has on multiple occasions requested grass be installed at every facility. So if the players are asking for that, I'm going to guess that there is, that's the preference. Is that, would you, all right, Croc, so back to you. We're going to bounce this ball back to you. Is that accurate that you guys prefer grass?
I would say most guys would tell you they prefer grass. For me, I just love playing football. So you give me grass, you give me dirt, you give me concrete, whatever it is, Eric Crocker's going to be there playing. But for guys that are, their livelihood is on the line with it, I think grass has always felt like the safer play. Just it has a little bit more bounce to it, a little bit more give to it, just a little bit more of a natural feel as opposed to turf, where sometimes your feet kind of slip from underneath you with the turf, or there are different things that kind of happen. But I would prefer, if you say, like, okay, Croc, you got to choose turf or grass, I'll go grass, especially if you can guarantee me that it's not going to rain or be muddy. So if you can guarantee me that, so I keep my footing, then better than, I definitely would say, grass.
Yeah, and Harold brings up a good point too, that not only are there different types of turf, but then you have to match cleats that work best with that type of turf. So it's just kind of, it would be better to have consistency. That'll be my final statement. It'd be better to have consistency. And if the players prefer grass, I would do what the players prefer.
Right. The turf companies, paying for the studies and stuff like that, man, it kind of reminds me, like, I've been into getting healthier as of late, really over the last year. Like before, I used to work out because I'm very competitive and I needed to work out to be good on the football field. But I wasn't someone that just naturally was like, yeah, I love working out. I love being in the gym. Like that was never Eric Crocker. But lately, I kind of got into this, like, feeling good. Like, it's making me feel good. And I had kind of a stressful point in my life, like a few months ago, where it's just like I was stressed. And I remember, like, going and just be like, I just need to go work out. Like, I just need to go, like, hit the weights, break a sweat, and just how it made me feel. Like, I'm like, like I feel better. And it's so interesting that, a lot of people don't suggest for your mental health working out. They suggest all these other things. Go talk to the therapist. Take all these pills. And I know my wife is on some of that stuff, like the antidepressant pills or anxiety pills and all that. And, they'll suggest those things, but they won't say, hey, man, like, when's the last time you've sprinted?
Yeah.
When's the last time that you've pushed some weights around? And all the studies show that a lot of things that you're dealing with mentally, like, you feel so much better after working out, especially if you do it consistently. You feel better mentally, and then you start to feel better physically, which in turn helps you feel even better mentally, because now that, a certain level of confidence, which is how you look and everything. And they never talk about that. And that kind of reminds me of this, where it's like, we're not really going to do exactly what's best for you. We're just going to kind of push this because this is what we want. And maybe it makes them more money. Maybe the guys getting injured gives more money back to them. I don't know. I don't know about any of that, but I bet there's something behind that.
Well, just so you know, I am a provider that does discuss the importance of movement on mental health. So that is a big part of what I do in my practice. But we're animals. At the end of the day, we forget that we are animals. We are creatures just like dogs, cats, giraffes. I mean, all of us, we're all animals, and animals are meant to move. We were meant to go and hunt for our food and go and gather and be social. And we're just creating a world now where we don't move. I'm sitting here on a chair talking to you over the internet. I'm going to go get in my car and now sit and drive to somewhere else where I'll probably sit. And so then you can see it in animals. I know if my dog doesn't get the walking that he's used to getting, he starts slumping around the house like, okay, there's not, he lays around more. It's the same thing. There's endorphins. There's like a whole benefit to exercise that you described so beautifully. And movement is key. Nutrition is key. Sleep is key. And stress is a killer. So, I think, what do we got here? Big Pharma.
So J Miller 13 says, Big Pharma ain't your friend. Don't be a fool. Eat right, eat less, take good supplements, exercise, and get outside. I haven't been outside the country, but I hear when you go out the country, their food portions are smaller than America.
Yes. And the quality. It's not just eat less, it's also the quality. The stuff that we put in our food here, a lot, there's so much of it that's banned in other countries. It is ridiculous. I saw a patient just before I came on today, and she's talking about moving overseas, and she has lived overseas before, and she did not have a weight problem until she moved to the States. And I have seen this over and over, folks that move to the States and they start gaining weight, even though nothing else has changed. It's because the quality of food. So quality of food and portion sizes are both vastly different in other countries than here.
So Gammon has a question, and you might be better suited to answer this. He says, my wife wants the household to go vegan, being in the Army, running, ruck marching, and working out. Am I going to suffer on gains? Croc, what is your diet? So I'll talk about kind of my diet, especially like when I'm on it, which I finally am like, all right, I'm getting back in the groove now. But eating right is expensive. Like, like when you are trying to eat healthier, I don't even know what's right anymore because everything is so doctored with the chicken and all that. But definitely a lot of protein. I consume a lot of protein from chicken. I'll eat I love salmon, but salmon is higher in fats. But I'll take the fats from that as opposed to the fats from I don't know a cheeseburger from BJ's or a cheeseburger from a fast food restaurant or whatever. So, but I'm really good with chicken, salmon, or some sorts of fish, a small portion of rice, and some veggies. And like I'm good with that. Now everybody's different. I can eat the same thing every day, and I'm good. Some people they need a variety of foods. My biggest issue or downfall is I love sweets. So I have to find something that is able to replace like all the candy or fruit snacks and all the things I want to eat. So I turned more to some like more like Greek yogurt, low fat Greek yogurt, and I'll just put some granolas in it. And that's a snack that I like love. And then even then I have to like control my portions on that. But find things that you truly like or love eating and you'll be fine. I started making this chicken, this baked chicken thighs, and it's like honey sriracha, and I season it, decently. I don't put any seasoning on my rice at all, but I season my chicken and stuff, and like I love it. So find things that you love to eat that are healthier, and you're cooking your foods, and I think it makes the process of eating better a lot easier. But he had a question on vegan. I can't speak on vegan because I've never done that, but maybe you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I tried to go vegan. I was vegan probably for almost 2 years. You can absolutely still make your gains. I mean, there's plenty of documentaries and things out there that you could probably find of, natural bodybuilders that are, I mean, they're cut up. You would not know that they're vegan. And that is possible. So that's the direct answer. What I would advise is connecting in with a dietitian, because going vegan, you do need to make sure that you understand what your nutrition looks like. You do have to understand where your proteins are coming from plant-based proteins. You do need to understand that you won't get B12. And so where are you going to get that? Because B12 comes from dirt. And normally if we didn't wash off our fruits and vegetables, we could get that naturally from there. But animals eat it, and then it goes into the meat from them eating it. So that's why we think we get it from meat, but you can get it in other ways, but you do need to be mindful about what might be missing from your diet. So always, this is what blows my mind when I work with patients. And for those of you who don't know me, I do own my own wellness and weight loss center here in Tampa. It's mind blowing how many times I've seen people and they'll tell, okay, so what have you been through? What have you done before in your journey? And they'll tell me keto and intermittent fasting and Atkins and Weight Watchers and all these different things. And I say, okay, I said, have you ever worked with a dietitian? Nope, never. And it's interesting because if you get a broken bone, who do you go see? The orthopedic, right? If you have a heart issue, who do you go see? The cardiologist. Well, if you have concerns about your nutrition or your weight, dietitian should be one of the things that you're referred to. And so many times it's not. So your body, Gammon, is going to be different than my body, is going to be different than Croc's body. I was not able to sustain being vegan because I became sensitive. I had a sensitivity to peanuts I was frankly allergic to peanuts. That's in the legume family, and I found I was sensitive to the entire legume family, which is vastly where a lot of plant-based proteins lie. So I was not able to maintain my protein intake. So it's not easy. It's complicated. And if you're just out here trying to wing it, you're going to get into some situations that are not going to be good for your health. And that's ultimately contra what you're trying to do, right? Like you want to try to be healthier. So make sure you connect in with a dietitian, a registered dietitian, and have them guide you. It's not like you need to spend, I mean, there's folks out there that are spending hundreds, even thousands of dollars on phentermine and all these other things. And, you know, going to see a dietitian is going to be vastly, vastly cheaper than that. And I do not understand why more people do not take that as an option.
Not only that, they'll spend all this money on all these different supplements, all these different things, and like spend money on everything but working out, which costs less, or having a personal trainer, right? Like they'll spend $700 a month on these random pills as opposed to spending a few $100s on having a trainer and somebody work with you on your physical.
That brings up another thing. Don't get nutrition advice from your trainer. Please see a registered dietitian and use a trainer. Let them work with you together as a team. Trainers know certain things, but a lot of it lies in diet culture and not necessarily will hit, especially if you have medical conditions. There's another layer that just, I do not recommend that.
Don't rely on Coach Croc saying all he eats is chicken, salmon, and rice most of the time. All right, and some egg whites and turkey bacon.
The question was what you eat. They were just asking what you ate. They didn't ask you to give them advice on what to
Well, you never know. Somebody might hear that and be like, "Oh, okay, well that's what Croc has done, and he's lost a lot of weight. Like that's what I'm gonna do," and that might not work for you. So everybody's body's different. But we went long, and I know you come on your lunch break and everything. So. Coach Desi, I appreciate you coming on today and talking some injuries and 49er football.
Yes. Go Niners. Whoop, whoop.
Go Niners. All right, everybody else, I will be back this evening. We got Wednesday night, Whiteout Wednesday with my guy Josh Harper and my guy Jasper Rose. Also, Coach Desi, she is now on Twitter, so make sure you all follow her on there. And she has a show that is live tonight as well, right?
It usually is tonight, but today we're going to go. Actually, as soon as I get done with you, we're going to hop on Girlfriends in Football.
All right. And, of course, Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky, WO Deposit. We out here making money. I came up, $1,200, $1,300 this weekend. We're going to make more this week coming up. Until then, I'm out. Peace.